bum, boom, ba-dum, boom. And here we are. This is really special for me. I haven't done one of those in a long time, and I thought it's time for another book review. One of those inhale the book reviews. I like books, I love books, and especially when they're gifted to me, like this one, The Obstacle is the Way. Fantastic book. I'm covering the author. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. For all our Stoic fans out there, I can highly, highly recommend. What I always do is I try to get my top memories, my top notes, my top golden nuggets out of a book into one of those episodes and really try to think and explore the thoughts. And that's what I'm going to do today. I got a new setup and I really want to try this. So here we go. The first one that really stuck with me was our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding on our intentions or our disposition. And I love that. I love that. We're really about intent. And once we figure that out, there's really nothing to be that mad about anymore. And I don't mean that in a literal sense. Of course, there's times to be mad, there's times to be sad, there's times to be frustrated. However, there's things when we look behind the curtains that we realize pretty quickly someone's intent is a lot different than what it shows to us. What they did is not necessarily what they intended to do. And so forgiveness and grace becomes a big thing. Because we can accommodate and adapt, we will survive. The mind adapts and converts to its own purpose the obstacles to our acting. I love that. I love that. There again, purpose. There again, adaptation. There again, the obstacles are going to transform to our acting, with our acting, through our acting. And that's what's really, 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 really key here. The impediment to action advances action. That's great. That's great. Just imagine everything would be smooth and great and fascinating all the time. That's not living. There's the saying that if we were all to live in oblivion, in this paradise-like situation, human beings would probably start trashing the place just to find something unpredictable, something to do, something that's not perfect at all times. And it sounds a lot like us. I don't think a smooth ride is going to make anybody happy. I just don't think that. What stands in the way becomes the way. So the full saying is, the impediment to our action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. One more time. The impediment to our action advances action. Jeez, I can't get that proper. One more time. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. I love that. That's just fascinating. There was Mr. Andy Grove, and I hope I don't butcher people's names again. Mr. Andy Grove. He was an Intel CEO. He says, bad companies are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive them, and great companies are improved by them. I love that. That's a wonderful quote. And I think that goes for human beings just as much, more from the macro back into the micro. But we really see the people that when in crisis, they strive, they become alive. And that's really what we're looking for. And that's really what I can appreciate about a good crisis is I grow from them. I try to really, really watch the people that are growing and striving in crisis, and I'm going to hook onto that. I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to try to emulate and try to adapt to exactly what it is they're doing to be better at crisis. There's a good portion that they talk about focusing and cultivating and maintaining the inner will and its strength that will allow us to handle any difficulty. And I think there's something to be said about that. If you focus on cultivating and maintaining your personal inner will, you're going to be able to overcome any obstacle. There's the tripod of this whole obstacle game, which is perception, action, and will. And those are the things that you have somewhat control over. How you perceive the things, what you do about them, and how long you can stick to what you're doing, your personal will. And then I wrote down what are basically my top 5 obstacles to my top 5 things to do when facing obstacles, I should say. And to me, those categories, the top 5 of anything, are always special. So here are my top 5 things to do when facing obstacles. Number 1, you got to be objective. If you look at the things for what they are, not better or not worse, really look at the things for what they are, you're always going to be better off. Sometimes you need help to do that, but this is really the one thing that I could highly, highly recommend. Number 1, to be objective. 2 is perspectives. There's this old saying that the people throughout history that had it the worst, when interviewed and asked about their dilemmas or their downfalls or their crises, they've always said it could have been worse. So there's perspective, which is number 2 on our list. Perspective really helps to see if this is really that big of a crisis, and sometimes it is just not. Sometimes it is just not. Number 3 on this list, the 5 things to do when facing obstacles, is to be present. The present is called a gift for a reason, right? It helps so much to not dwell too much in the past and to not worry too much about the future, but to really be present. And especially when you're facing an obstacle, worrying about how past obstacles went, not so much. Worrying about future outcomes of this whole scenario, probably not so helpful. But right in front of you, what's right in front of you, I think that is really key to be looked at. That's when you become present. That's when you really zone in on what you're doing at this point in time and what the next step is or should be. That's what really, really makes a difference. Number 4, focus on what can be controlled. If you focus on all the things that you can't control, that are out of your control, that others have to do, or maybe the weather is responsible, maybe you're not ever going to find a way to overcome the obstacle that way. But if you focus on the things that you can control, or the things that are in reach of what you can control, even if you have to work a little harder to get there, that's really where you make the biggest impact, and that's really where you start moving towards overcoming the obstacle. And then 5, this too shall pass. There's no such thing as a double night. There's no such thing as a double summer, although sometimes it feels like that. But after summer comes fall and then winter. After night always comes morning and day. That always happens. Always, 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 always happens. So whatever you're experiencing, this too shall pass. So quick recap on the top 5 things to do when facing obstacles. Be objective, number 1. Get perspective, number 2. Be present, number 3. Focus on what can be controlled, number 4. And then this too shall pass. A good reminder that you're never going to be at the same spot forever. It's just not a thing. Our perception is the only thing we have control over. We choose how we view the things. There's a word that they really try to describe in this book, which I really like. It's a Greek word, and trust me, my Greek is nowhere near good. So I'm just going to wing this. It's apatheia, which is a call equanimity with the absence of irrational or extreme emotions. Not the loss of feeling, but the loss of the harmful, disabling kind of emotions. I love that. Apatheia, a calm equanimity with the absence of irrational or extreme emotions. Not the loss of feeling, but the loss of the harmful, disabling kind of emotions that are with us so often. I love that. Apatheia. Gavin Backer, in his book, Gift of Fear, he says, what am I choosing not to see? What am I choosing not to see? What are the important things that I'm missing? And I do believe that's a good one to ask ourselves when in crisis. when we're struck by fear, maybe we're struck or completely overwhelmed by the situation, a good question is, what am I choosing not to see? What important things am I missing? Those are excellent questions. We manage emotions with logic. Logic is questions and statements. Enough of them will help you find the root cause to almost any problem. Wow! We manage emotions with logic. We manage emotions with logic. Logic is statements and questions. Enough of them help you find the root of whatever it is you're looking for. I love that. The difference between observing and perceiving. Observing, on the one hand, is simply what's there, right? We look at something and we describe it as is. I have to do that at work a lot. Not what I feel about it, but just what is. Perceiving, on the other hand, is what it means to us. And perceiving brings a lot of our own baggage into the mix, a lot of our own past issues, a lot of our own interpretations. And that's really what makes it difficult. So when we can focus on observing, which is strong, then we can really be better off in the situation. Where when we perceive, we limit it. We're always going to be crippled by what has been, or empowered by what could be. But if you use the perception of a situation, if it's causing you to take a step back and not move ahead, then I'd rather encourage you to just observe. Don't perceive, just look at it for what it is. I really like that portion too. And for others, what I really, as a Stoic, it is so hard to believe in, but it works, is when we gift clarity, not sympathy. Empathy is important. Sympathy has its limits, and then after sympathy, if not instead of sympathy, we should gift clarity. Oh, that's pure gold. So we see things for what they are. We don't feel for a person with maybe a mixed or distorted perception of reality. We gift clarity. Empathy is key, and then clarity. Perspective has two definitions in this book. I love this. Number one definition of perspective is a context, right? A perspective is a context, which is basically a larger picture of the world. Number two definition of perception or perspective, is framing. How do you frame something? How do you interpret what you see in the world? So if you really manage to differentiate between putting things into context and to frame things how you see them, you really got a good understanding on perspective. And there's both times. There's times to use either or. Sometimes it's better to use one over the other. How we interpret is the framework for our forthcoming response. How we interpret the world is the framework for our forthcoming response. That's gold. That's so good. Framework plus decision equals action. I like that. 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 And then there's this old saying, which I really like. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's always a good one. The implications of our obstacle are theoretical, right? When we think about an obstacle, everything is in theory. We just imagine it to be there. Sometimes it's not really there. It's just a thing that we play out in our mind. That's the obstacle. The only exists in a past or a future scenario. When we live in the moment and we truly embrace what's happening right as of now, we will have an easier time to face any solution, because the worst thing that we imagine has not happened yet. And what we take as baggage from the past really doesn't matter in the current moment. So the implications of our obstacle are purely theoretical because they have not happened yet. We don't control reality, but our thoughts and decisions influence it. We don't control reality, but our thoughts and decisions influence it. I would agree. Whenever you are in a situation, just how you perceive and how you start to think about the situation influences your reality, right? A good mood, a bad mood, loving, kind way of being, or a hateful, spiteful way of being. It's influential, for sure. You can fight an obstacle the whole way, or you can choose to see the gift within either way. Wait a minute. You can fight an obstacle the whole way, or you can choose to see the gift within either way. The end result is much more painful if you choose to fight the obstacle. I understand. You can fight an obstacle all the way for the whole time that the obstacle is in your way. Or you can choose to see the gift within and embrace it. And at the end of the day, you'll find that when you embrace an obstacle and you see the gift, the lesson within, you'll find you have a much easier time and it's less painful. Embracing the obstacle is less painful. I love this. Obstacles don't unobstacle themselves. I love that. Obstacles don't unobstacle themselves. If you have not learned the lesson from any given obstacle, and I've just talked to a friend about this, if you don't pay attention and if you don't learn the lesson from any given obstacle, the universe somehow finds a way to send you that particular obstacle over and over and over and over again, right? Why can't we seem to make a relationship work? There's a lesson not learned yet. And we'll have to pass that grade. We have to learn that lesson to move on and to go to the next step. That's huge. That's huge. Theodore Roosevelt said, "We must all either rust out or wear out. Every single one of us. My choice is to wear out." What's yours? I love this. We all must either rust out or wear out. It is our choice. My choice is to wear out. This is great. I love this. This is good. Wishing and hoping for better is really not doing anything. It's one of the worst strategies out there. Wishing and hoping is really one of the worst. Not the worst maybe, but one of the worst. The time for wishing and hoping usually passes, a new wind has risen, and it's time to set a sail. So if this reaches someone right now, I wish for this to reach someone. Wishing and hoping for better is not doing anything. The time for that has passed. It is time to acknowledge that the wind has risen, and it is time to set your sail. Courage then translates immediately, directly to take an action. If you want momentum, you have to create it yourself. And here's a simple but true fact. I truly believe that. Working at it works. It's that simple. Working at it works. Never in a hurry. Never worried. Never desperate. Never stopping short. Just working at it works 100% at the time. Of the time. There's a saying, and the Sir Henry Royce has been credited with it. And here is my skill of a Latin saying. Quid vis recte factum, quam vis humile praeclarum. Which means whatever is rightly done, however humble, is noble. Whatever is rightly done, however humble, is noble. Quid vis recte factum quam vis humile preclarum. I probably butchered that, but I hope the message came across. If you do something and you do it right, it doesn't really matter how small of an achievement it is. It's noble. It's the right step forward. That's progress. That's what we're aiming for. That really is what it's all about at the end of the day. Whatever is rightly done, however humble, is noble. Sir Henry Royce. In every situation, I love this one. In every situation, life asks a question. How we act is how we answer that question. Wow. At any given moment, life is asking a question. How we act is how we answer that question. Whew. Our job is to answer well, answer good, answer with grace. That's the real job here, people. That's the real job. Think progress, not perfection. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. Think progress. And I shouldn't say there's no such thing. Everything is perfect, but then everything is also not perfect. And you could really, really make a big deal out of this. However, if you aim for progress, that's as close to perfection as you're ever going to be. Here's the thing, and this is very much close to martial arts and all that. When pushed, our instincts urge us to push back. Don't. Pull motion until the opposition loses balance, and then make your move. I love this. When pushed, our instinct urges us to push back. Don't. Pull motion until the opposition loses balance, and then make your move. That's basically the MMA or martial arts 101, right? To be physically and mentally loose takes no talent. That's called recklessness. We want appropriate action, not just action, period. To be mentally and physically tight doesn't work either. That's called anxiety. Eventually, a person will snap. So when you practice balance, acceptance, humility, that's when you really start to master any of those obstacle business, and you make it look easy. Easy, easy, easy. True will is quiet humility, resilience, and flexibility. Focus on those three: humility, resilience, and flexibility. There's a saying, again, I do believe it's Latin: sustine e abstine. Acknowledge that there is pain and move onward whilst bearing it. Acknowledge that there's pain and move ahead, move forward, progress whilst bearing said pain. The path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. I'm going to start that over. The path of least resistance is a horrible teacher. Spending too much time in the comfort zone is not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to get anybody anywhere for that matter. And that's a guarantee. And speaking of guarantees, in the book, I don't know if you've heard about the great Oracle of Delphi, back in Greek times, had inscribed on it. It said, offer a guarantee and disaster threatens. Offer a guarantee and disaster threatens. That was the great Oracle of Delphi. So we don't guarantee, we don't expect a guaranteed outcome, because that's likely going to lead to disaster at the end. I love this. There was a paragraph in there, and it's about the saying God willing, or as long or so God will. And there's a Roman phrase which is called Deo volente, and that it might even be Italian, but it basically means God willing. So if God will, we're going to get this done. If God will, we're going to master this. If God will, we're going to overcome this obstacle. Deo volente. Golfers use it and say, play it where it lies. Just play it where it lies. I love this. Persistence, again, I got to start this over again. Persistence is trying to solve the obstacle of any particular game. Perseverance is continuing to play even after losses. Persistence is trying to solve the obstacle of any particular game. Perseverance is to keep on playing even after losses. That's good. That's good. There was a reference to a German word. It's called Sitzfleisch, which basically refers to seating flesh. Basically, your buttocks, your bum. The longer you sit is proof that you have Sitzfleisch, that you have a great bum. Because if you can sit and sit still and last and resist, and if you have staying power, that's what it really means. You're better off. If you're resilient, so to speak. Sorry. It is very important for these people to persist and to persevere. It is very important to persist and to persevere. And you achieve this by unity over yourself. Sorry. One other piece that I really, really enjoyed was, I do believe this one is Roman, and it says memento mori. Memento mori? Memento mori. Basically, remember, you're mortal. Remember that we're all going to die, and to remember that I am going to die helps me to be present. It helps me to stay sharp, to see clearly, right? And that's why it is so important to remember we're gonna die. Gary Vee is so famous for that, right? Gary Vee, tell me 3 words that are gonna keep me motivated forever. And he says, you're gonna die, right? You're gonna die. And that's what this means. Memento mori, remember that. Memento mori, you're mortal. Remember, you're gonna die. A good rule of 3. First, see clearly. Second, act correctly. And third, endure and accept what is. That's a good one. That's a good one. There's a saying, Mr. Nassim Nicholas Taleb said, transform fear into prudence, pain into information, mistakes into initiation, desire into undertaking. And that is really, really, really good. I do believe we make a lot of the stuff up as we go, and I do believe we get an understanding as we learn our lessons through that. And the Stoics really, really believe that. Vires acquirit iundo. We gather strength as we go. That was a motto. That was like a marching motto, right? Vires acquirit iundo. Eundo. We gather strength as we go. And as a summary at the very end of the book, which I really, really liked, was the essence of philosophy is action. To see things philosophically is to act accordingly. So with that, I really, really hope anybody gets a chance to read the book. I'm going to show it one more time. It's The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I highly recommend it. It was gifted to me by my good friend Kenton, and I can't wait for you to get into the book and maybe leave me a comment too of what you thought about it. See you later.